Okay, so we are ending now with this chapter 29. The West in the Contemporary Era, New Encounters and Transformations. What I decided to do for this class is I'm actually only going to give this brief lecture. I want you to read, and I'm going to show you a series of films that I want you to take notes on that I think really help you visualize much of what you're reading and put them into a different context than maybe you've thought of before, okay? Because what we're going to see is the fall of the Soviet Union. So here is the fall of the Berlin Wall, which is really important. So remember, that gets put up, and then it's going to be coming down in my lifetime. And, you know, I graduated high school essentially shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union. There was so much optimism and happiness and people feeling like the world was going to be a better place because liberal democracy has triumphed over totalitarianism. And frankly, there's a lot of, well, that's not how the world works. If it's true to say that the Soviets were failed in delivering what their claimed that they could, I would argue that the post-Soviet life has failed as well. And this is what's led the world into such a cynicism now. I mean, we're really seeing ourselves in kind of almost a type of post-ideological world. Not exactly, but ultimately, we're living in a world in which people believed in big ideas like democracy, fascism, communism. And now, what do people believe in? And in the Islamic world, as I've talked about, as you've read, and what I might be able to show in some of my clips, is that it was looking to other ideologies as well that all failed. And so political Islam is going to reassert itself as a type of ism to get through the day, okay? And you know, obviously, some of these different movements, I mean, you know, I'm not here analyzing the qualities of all these movements. What I'm just simply saying is that this is the case. And, you know, much of the war on terror now comes out of the fall of the Soviet Union. That's the next phase. But it's much more vague. To say we fight communism is very consistent, right? I mean, okay, yes, it's debatable whether we're fighting for democracy versus totalitarianism, but we were definitely fighting against communism, especially, you know, Soviet and Chinese influenced communism. But a war on terror is vague. Terror is a tactic, as one politician said. Having a war on tactic, that doesn't really make much sense. It's actually logistically nonsensical. But okay, so you know, with a war on terror, what is this? Is this what's going to cause the end of this war? I mean, we know the fight in communism was to end communism. China is still communist, but it's essentially capitalist. It's not the Cold War as before. Okay, so we're going to see all that. With the Soviet Union falling apart and all these separate nations that were once dominated by Russia falling apart, going into the NATO sphere, going into the Western sphere. When you see Putin now, Putin is reasserting a kind of muscle, hoping to get Russia to not become in a position that it's always been historically, to be vulnerable. I mean, the very reasons why Russia justified, I think, a lot as a nationalist sense to occupy Eastern Europe was to protect, keep a buffer zone to keep Russia safe. Well, now that's all been removed. And think about how many bases now and positions that the West has encroached on Russia. If Russia had a base in Mexico right now, or Nicaragua, I think we'd be horrified. I think I might have mentioned this in one of my other previous lectures. But that's the position that Russia's in. And so I'm not claiming that I am justifying anything about Putin, but from a nationalist perspective, from a hawkish nationalist perspective, Putin is kind of making the decisions that Hitler did dealing with the Treaty of Versailles, which is that is Russia in any position that's going to get better by capitulating to Western interests at the expense of Russian interests? And I think that's the question that many Russian nationalists have been asking, which is why we're seeing Russia reassert itself so vigorously and attempt to do so. And so I just want to point all of that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a series of documentaries that I think will complement the reading. It's going to be a little less, it's going to be a little haphazard, but there's certain things that I thought, when you walk out today and you finish this class and you think about the legacy of the West and you think about where we're at now and trying to understand and put it all together, to try to understand the West from a post-World War II era to the Cold War era to the post-Cold War era, and now what we're into now and where we're at now. I'm hoping that some of these documentaries will kind of just give you a little insight into all of that, and that you'll have ended this class at the very least coming out with a lot of questions, being inquisitive and wanting to know more, and realize that we just couldn't cover all the things we needed to, and that's why being a lifelong student is important. And if you really want to be a well-informed voter, if you're going to engage with life and politics, and really try to make the best decision, you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your country, and you owe it to your fellow human beings, in my opinion, to really work hard at being a rigorous student of the world. Because at the very least, we might make a wrong decision. We may be on the wrong side of history sometimes, but at least you can know that you've worked hard and tried hard. Right now, I think that we're just at a crisis when it comes to knowledge about the world, about our own selves. And this is why I think history is so important. And I really hope that no matter what, you didn't feel that I was cramming too much of my own politics on you, but that in this class, that you realize that we can all look through our politics much more carefully and really, do that reanalysis all the time about what we stand for and how we perceive the world. Okay, that's enough. I enjoyed having you with my class, and thank you, and may we continue on together.